So we defend ourselves from the same crime element that they scared of. You know what I'm saying? While they waiting for legislation to pass and everything, we next door to the...
Well, they can't drop him like it's hot. Snoop Dogg is speaking out about LGBTQ content in kids' movies.
He left at night. Snoop Dogg, one of the most beloved figures in hip-hop, climbed onto a private jet and got out of the country. The official story is business. Of course it is. But insiders say the flight was not about meetings or tour dates. It was about fear. Fear of an FBI arrest that has not even happened yet. The trigger is Keefe, the one guy who was supposed to deliver Sean Combs in connection with Tupac Shakur's case. Instead, according to multiple insider reports, Keefe flipped. He started talking to prosecutors, and when he opened his mouth, he did not point at Diddy. He pointed at Snoop Dogg. Now, it is April 2026. The Keefe trial came and went in February without closure. The Shakur case is still open, and an icon who was never supposed to be anywhere near this thing is already gone.
He's saying that, Diddy, he put a hit out on you and Tupac, and that's the reason why Tupac got in Vegas. So, yeah, man. How you feel about that?
Well, first thing first. I mean, that conversation been out there. He put his truth out there. A lot of other people put their truth out there.
Here's the part that should make your stomach turn. The entire threat against Snoop Dogg comes from one man, and that man has already admitted he lies for money. Keefe recounted once before. He made explosive claims against Diddy, then walked them back. He said he made things up. He admitted he said what he said because there was cash in it. Now, after all of that, the same unreliable witness has reportedly pivoted and named Snoop Dogg. The prosecutors who once relied on Keefe to take down Diddy are now, if the insiders are right, building something else entirely. And Snoop Dogg responded not with a denial tour, not with lawyers on every news show, but with a private jet at night. Think about what that actually means. An innocent person who hears a known liar has pointed a finger at them usually does two things. First, they laugh. Second, they call their lawyer and dare anyone to come forward. They do not vanish. They do not let the liar control the story by default. But Snoop Dogg did the third thing, the thing nobody asked for. He left. The official reason, business affairs, is so vague it might as well be a confession. What business requires a midnight escape on a private jet? What business trip cannot wait until morning? When the cover story is thin enough to see through, the real story is usually sitting right behind it. The legal status makes this even stranger. The Keefe trial happened in February 2026. That was supposed to be a moment of clarity. Instead, it produced nothing. No final closure for Diddy. No final closure for anyone. The case is still open as of this month. In the world of cold cases, open means anything can still happen. Closed would end the pressure. Closed would let everyone exhale. But nobody has filed the paperwork that makes this go away. So the threat is not a rumor. It is a file that exists, that refuses to close, and that reportedly now has Snoop Dogg's name written somewhere inside it.
It's only happening in Long Beach right now as far as me doing something for the community because that's where my heart lies at as far as straightening out my own neighborhood before I go.
And here is the betrayal that makes this story feel genuinely ugly. Keefe was supposed to be Diddy's problem. For years, the speculation ran the same way. Keefe talks, and Diddy finally answers for Tupac Shakur. That was the script. That was what everyone expected. Instead, Keefe reportedly did something else. He gave up Snoop Dogg, the man who was never part of the East Coast-West Coast war, the man who was friends with everyone, the man who made peace while everyone else made enemies. Suddenly, he became the target. Why would a witness who already admitted to lying for money change his story in a way that protects Diddy and hurts Snoop Dogg? Either Keefe is telling the truth now, which means everything he said before was a lie, or he is lying now, which means someone wanted him to point in a different direction. Either answer is bad. Snoop Dogg's flight becomes the evidence that makes the whole thing spin. If he had stayed, if he had walked through the airport like nothing was wrong, the story would have less weight. But he did not. He left at night, reportedly on a jet he controls, to a location nobody has confirmed. He is insulating himself against something. Whether that something is a real arrest warrant or just the fear of one almost does not matter anymore. The behavior is on the record. The behavior is suspicious. Once you flee, you cannot unflee. You cannot explain it away as a coincidence. Every day he stays overseas, the suspicion grows louder. The question shifts from, did he do something? To, why is he acting like someone who did? But here's the trap, and it is a nasty one. If Snoop Dogg returns to the United States and nothing happens, if the FBI never shows up with handcuffs, then his flight looks paranoid. It looks like the act of a man who assumed guilt when there was none. Why would you run if you had nothing to fear? Conversely, if he never comes back, if he builds a new life overseas and lets the case stay open forever, then the story writes itself. He knew something. He knew enough to stay away. Either way, he loses. He cannot win. The loop closes around him and does not open again.
This is a 5.5-hour flight. Don't nobody say one word to me. Not one word. Just having conversations and doing all kinds.
The person who benefits from this mess is sitting in a prison cell right now. Sean Combs was convicted in July 2025 on 2 counts tied to the Mann Act. He is serving 50 months. He is appealing, arguing that the so-called freak-offs were protected speech. That appeal could change everything for him. But watch what happens underneath the legal noise. The Tupac Shakur investigation, the one that haunted Diddy for 30 years, has reportedly pivoted away from him. The whispers about his involvement, the allegations from Keefe that used to point directly at Diddy, are now aimed at Snoop Dogg. If Snoop Dogg takes the fall for this, if he becomes the target that satisfies both the public and the prosecutors, then Diddy walks away from the allegation that followed him like a shadow. And nobody is talking about the silence. The FBI has not said a word publicly about Snoop Dogg. No warrant, no statement, no denial that he is a person of interest. Just nothing. That silence is the loudest part of the whole story, because silence is not denial. Silence is waiting. What are they waiting for? Either they have nothing, in which case Snoop Dogg fled for no reason, or they have something, and they are building it quietly while he sits somewhere far from US Marshals. The fact that we do not know which one is true is the pressure. The ambiguity is the weapon. Snoop Dogg cannot act on information he does not have, and the government is not required to tell him what they know.
He just laid on the floor for like 30 minutes. His mama came in there and cleaned me up. His mama came in there and cleaned me up.
The ugly truth is that Snoop Dogg's own words make this worse. When Suge Knight accused him of trying to help Keefe get bail, Snoop Dogg fired back with a strange denial. He said, quote, "I realize your real lies." It sounds like someone who expected to be accused before the accusation landed. An innocent person usually says something like, "That never happened," or "I was nowhere near that." They do not say, "I see through your lies." That is preemptive. That is defensive in a way that suggests the fight was already happening in his head before the rest of us even knew there was a fight at all. Now he is overseas, and he cannot clarify what he meant. Clarifying would require him to come home, and coming home means facing whatever is waiting for him. So the strange quote just sits there, unexplained, getting stranger by the day. Here is where we are. Snoop Dogg is gone. The case is open. Keefe a proven liar, has reportedly flipped the entire investigation onto a man who was never supposed to be in the room. The FBI will not say anything. Diddy sits in prison, watching the spotlight move away from him. And Snoop Dogg cannot come back without looking guilty, and cannot stay away without looking like he knows something he should not know. That is the loop. That is the trap. The only question that matters now is which version of this story breaks first. The one where an innocent man exiled himself for nothing, or the one where a legend ran because he had no choice. Wait, let me pull on a thread that has been sitting in the background of this whole thing for years. Suge Knight has been locked up since 2018, serving 28 years for a fatal hit and run. From that cell, he has been giving interviews like a man with nothing left to lose. He says he knows who was really involved in what happened to Tupac Shakur. He claims the industry has known the truth all along. But here's the part that cuts directly into what is happening with Snoop Dogg right now. Suge Knight insists that Snoop Dogg was never loyal. He says Snoop Dogg made moves behind the scenes that looked like self-preservation, not friendship. Suge Knight is not a clean witness. He has every reason to want Snoop Dogg to look bad, especially after Snoop Dogg ended up owning Death Row Records. But Suge Knight was also in the car when the shooting happened. He was there. And when a man who was there starts naming names, you cannot just wave him off.
That boy life is dangerous. His life doesn't, and he's just not dangerous with the they said he was doing, but he's in danger. He knows too much.
Here is where the old history gets uncomfortably close to the present. Suge Knight has also claimed, and this is purely his account, so handle it with care, that Snoop Dogg tried to help Keefe D get out on bail. According to Suge Knight, Snoop Dogg was working quietly to free the one man whose testimony could put him in the crosshairs. Let that sit for a second. If you are innocent, you do not secretly help the witness who is pointing at you. You distance yourself. You make it clear you have nothing to do with him. You do not get involved in bail arrangements. But if you are worried about what that witness might say next, if you are worried about him cutting a deal that lands on you, then helping him might feel like insurance. It is not proof of anything, but it is the kind of behavior that makes a suspicious story look even dirtier. And then there is the question of who else has been watching this whole thing unfold from a distance. Sean Combs is sitting in a federal prison right now, serving 50 months. His lawyers are fighting an appeal, arguing that the parties were protected speech. That appeal could change everything for him. But watch what is happening underneath the surface. For 30 years, the Tupac Shakur investigation haunted Diddy. His name came up every time anyone talked about who was really behind the shooting. The police said he was never a suspect, but the whispers never stopped. Now, suddenly, those whispers have a new target. The same unreliable witness who pointed at Diddy for years has reportedly turned and pointed at someone else. Someone who was never in the crosshairs, someone who had no history with Tupac Shakur the way Diddy did. If you were Diddy watching this from a prison cell, you would be breathing a little easier.
As far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life. With all the charges he had to, he won't get out till 70 years old. He about 70. That's when they start talking about letting him come to a halfway house.
Think about the asymmetry of that outcome. Diddy spent decades denying involvement. He watched documentaries get made. He watched books get written. He watched Keefe D give interview after interview, each one dragging his name through the mud. Through all of it, no charges ever came. The case never stuck to him. Now, just when it looked like Keefe D might finally force some kind of reckoning, the story shifted. The same witness flipped his target. And the man who was never supposed to be part of this conversation is now the one running. That is not how justice is supposed to work, but it is how this story is playing out in real time. Here is where the history gets even stranger. Suge Knight has also claimed, and again, this is his account, that Prince once set up a confrontation between him and Diddy at a hotel in Hollywood. According to Suge Knight, Prince seated them at the same table on purpose, knowing exactly what would happen. Suge Knight says he leaned over and suggested they settle things in the restroom. He claims Diddy stood up, got heated, and was then rushed out by security with coats thrown over his head. Whether that story is true or not, it tells you how deep this runs. These men were not just rivals. They were circling each other for years. And the violence that took Tupac Shakur's life was always the shadow over every room they shared.
3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
Now, bring in the people who were closest to all of this. Voletta Wallace, the mother of the Notorious B.I.G., has not stayed silent. She said recently that she wants to slap the daylights out of Diddy. Those are her exact words. She said she is sick to her stomach. She watched the hotel footage of what happened, and she said she is ashamed and embarrassed. That is not a legal opinion. That is a mother who lost her son in the same war, watching the man who was supposed to be family get exposed in the ugliest way possible. When someone like Voletta Wallace speaks, you listen. The silence from the rest of the industry is loud, but the people who do speak are not defending anyone. And what about the family at the center of all this? Tupac Shakur's family has hired lawyers. They are actively investigating whether Diddy had any role in what happened. They have brought in Alex Spiro, a high-profile attorney, and they are digging. They say they want the truth, wherever it leads. That is not a small thing. The family of the victim does not hire investigators unless they believe there is something to find. They are not doing this for publicity. They are doing it because they think the official story has gaps. If their investigation turns up anything, if they find evidence that connects Diddy or anyone else to that night in Las Vegas, then the whole case cracks open again. But here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. Even if the family finds something, even if they build a case, the clock is running. Keefe D's trial has been pushed back multiple times. It is now scheduled for August 2026. That is not tomorrow. That is a long way away. Every delay gives everyone involved more time to get their stories straight, more time to cut deals, more time to let memories fade. The legal system moves slowly, but Snoop Dogg made his move fast. He was on that private jet at night, not waiting for the courts to figure things out. That speed says something. It says he was not willing to let the process play out.
Because he wasn't talking just to be talking. I felt he was also coming straight because there was a big war behind that. A war that they lost. And I think it was a war that destroyed their neighborhood.
Now factor in what Tupac Shakur's family has been doing while all of this has been happening. They have not just been sitting around waiting for the official investigation to finish. They hired lawyers. They brought in Alex Spiro, the same attorney who has represented some of the biggest names in entertainment, and they have been actively digging. This is not a symbolic gesture. When a victim's family hires outside investigators, it means they do not trust the official process. It means they think something is being missed, hidden, or deliberately ignored. And they have been clear about their focus. They want to know whether Diddy played any role in what happened to Tupac Shakur. That investigation is still open. Nobody knows what they have found. Here is where that family investigation becomes a direct pressure point on the current situation. If the Shakur team uncovers anything that connects Diddy to the shooting, even circumstantially, it changes the entire landscape. Suddenly, the man who was never a suspect becomes a target again. And if that happens while Snoop Dogg is still overseas, still running from a threat that came from the same witness, the optics become almost impossible to untangle. Two men, one in prison and one in exile, both tied to the same witness's changing story. The family's lawyers are not talking about what they have found. That silence is its own kind of signal.
We argued.
Over Trump?
After this thing happened, he'll tell you, we talked for 2 hours shouting at each other.
Huh.
Snoop, I loved him so much. I grew up in LA on 135th and Avalon. And when he got in trouble, I prayed for a crib. Do you know what it's like to pray for? I prayed.
And do not forget about the other families watching this unfold. Voletta Wallace, the mother of the notorious B.I.G, has already made her feelings clear. She said she wants to slap Diddy. She said she is sick to her stomach. That is not legal testimony. That is a mother's rage, and it carries weight in the court of public opinion. The notorious B.I.G's death has never been solved. The parallels between his case and Tupac Shakur's are impossible to ignore. Two legends. Two drive-by shootings. Two unsolved cases that have haunted hip-hop for 30 years. And now the same names keep circling back. Diddy, Suge Knight, Keefe D, and Snoop Dogg, pulled in from the outside. The timing of all this matters more than people realize. Keefe D's trial keeps getting pushed back. The latest date is August 2026. That is not a quick resolution. That is a long runway, and a lot can happen in that time. Witnesses can change their stories again. Evidence can appear or disappear. Deals can be cut. And Snoop Dogg, sitting overseas, has to wonder every single day whether the next headline will be his name attached to an arrest warrant. The uncertainty is the punishment. He cannot plan his life. He cannot tour freely. He cannot go home. The case does not have to convict him to destroy his mobility. It just has to stay open.
She stepped up as my wife and handled that. And there's been many times where I've been at my lowest, and she's always been the strongest to get me back up to like, get back out there. You gotta get back out there and do what you do. Don't worry about what's happening over here. I'm gonna handle that.
So when you look at the full board, here's what you see. A witness who cannot be trusted, a trial that keeps sliding into the future, a family investigation that could blow everything open at any moment, an FBI that refuses to say a word, a rival in prison who might benefit from the chaos, another rival in prison who keeps talking, and a man who was never supposed to be here, sitting on a beach somewhere, watching his reputation dissolve in real time because he made the choice to run. The story is not getting simpler. It is getting wider and uglier with every passing week, and nobody is in control of it anymore. So where does that leave the legal pressure on Snoop Dogg? The FBI still has not said a word. No warrant, no statement, no confirmation that he is even a person of interest. That silence is doing all the work. Because if the FBI had nothing, they could say so. They could end the story with one sentence. But they have not. The longer they stay quiet, the more it looks like they are building something, or waiting for something, or letting Snoop Dogg sit overseas while they figure out their next move. Either way, the silence is not an accident. It is a choice, and it is the loudest part of the whole story.
Humans are not just good and bad, black and white. They're compassionate at times. They're, at times, a man can be compassionate to women at the same time. I was. Look at the lunatic and look at Brother's Got a Baby.
Now pull the camera back and look at the full picture. You have a witness who has already admitted he lies for money. You have a legal case that refuses to close. You have a celebrity who fled the country on a private jet at night. You have an FBI that will not talk. You have a rival label owner speaking from a prison cell. You have a victim's family hiring investigators. You have another imprisoned mogul whose legal problems suddenly look less urgent because the spotlight moved. Through all of it, the man at the center of the storm is sitting somewhere overseas, watching it all happen on a screen, unable to come home without looking guilty, and unable to stay away without looking like he knows something. That is where we are right now. The loop is still turning. The case is still open. Snoop Dogg is still gone. Keefe D is still a question mark. Diddy is still in prison, but his name is not the one making headlines anymore. Suge Knight is still talking. Voletta Wallace is still angry. Nobody knows what happens next. The only thing that is clear is that this story is not over. It is not even close to over. What is your read on this whole situation? Do you think Snoop Dogg made the right call getting out? Or did he overreact to a liar's story? And what about Diddy sitting in prison, watching all of this unfold? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand. We will keep watching. Talk soon.